Most people believe daily excellence is about working harder, waking up earlier, or pushing themselves with discipline, but effort applied in the wrong direction doesn't lead to excellence, it leads to exhaustion. Before you worry about how hard you're working, you should question what game you're playing. Life rewards people who choose the right game far more than those who merely play hard. Every field has its own rules, incentives, and ceilings. Some games reward creativity and long-term thinking. Others reward obedience and short-term effort. If the game you're in has a low ceiling, no amount of persistence will break through it. This is why choosing the right game is the most important decision you make. It determines whether your daily actions compound or cancel each other out. The right game is usually one that aligns with your natural curiosity. When you're genuinely interested in something, learning feels effortless. You don't need external motivation because the process itself becomes rewarding. Curiosity is nature's way of telling you where your leverage lies. If you ignore it and chase goals purely for status, money, or approval, discipline becomes a constant battle. Excellence doesn't come from fighting yourself every day. It comes from working with your own nature. People often confuse hard work with value creation. In reality, value comes from judgment, knowing what to work on and what to ignore. Two people can put in the same number of hours and get vastly different results based solely on the game they choose. One may be running on a treadmill, while the other is building something that compounds. Time is fixed, direction is not. Excellence begins when you respect your time enough to place it in games that have asymmetrical upside. Choosing the right game also means thinking long-term. Short-term games are crowded because the rewards are immediate and visible. Long-term games are less competitive because they require patience, faith, and delayed gratification. The greatest returns, financial, intellectual, and personal, come from games that reward consistency over years, not intensity over weeks. Daily excellence thrives in environments where progress compounds quietly, often unnoticed, until it becomes undeniable. Another sign of the right game is that it allows you to build unique knowledge. If you can be easily replaced, the game is stacked against you. Excellence emerges when you develop skills that cannot be copied overnight, skills formed by the intersection of experience, curiosity, and long-term practice. These games reward originality, not conformity. They favor individuals who think independently and are willing to look wrong in the short term to be right in the long term. Finally, choosing the right game requires the courage to walk away from the wrong ones. Many people stay trapped because they've already invested time, reputation, or identity, but sunk costs are illusions. The cost of staying in the wrong game is far greater than the cost of starting over. Daily excellence isn't about perfection, it's about honest course correction. The moment you choose a game that aligns with who you are and where the future is going, progress stops feeling forced and starts feeling inevitable. Excellence, then, is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters repeatedly in a game worth playing. Most people think excellence comes from setting ambitious goals and summoning the motivation to chase them every day. But motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls with mood, energy, and circumstance. Systems, on the other hand, don't care how you feel. They operate quietly in the background, turning small actions into predictable outcomes. Daily excellence is not built on heroic effort. It's built on simple, repeatable systems. A system is any process that makes the right action the default action. When something is designed well, it requires less willpower and fewer decisions. This matters because decision-making is expensive. Every unnecessary choice drains mental energy that could be used for thinking, creating, or solving real problems. The most effective people remove friction from good behaviors and add friction to bad ones. They don't rely on discipline, they rely on design. Excellence looks boring from the outside because it's repetitive, the same actions done again and again without drama or intensity. Reading a few pages daily outperforms binge learning. Writing a small amount consistently beats occasional bursts of inspiration. Improving by 1% a day feels insignificant, but over time it compounds into mastery. The math of consistency is simple, yet most people ignore it because the early rewards are invisible. Systems also free you from the emotional highs and lows of progress. When your identity is tied to outcomes, every setback feels personal. But when your focus is on the process, you win by showing up. The outcome becomes a side effect. This shift is subtle but powerful. It turns excellence into a habit rather than a performance. You stop asking whether you feel like doing the work and start asking whether the system is being followed. Another advantage of systems is that they scale. A goal ends once it's achieved. A system keeps running. When you design systems that fit your life, they continue to deliver results even during difficult periods. On days when energy is low, a simple system still moves you forward. On days when energy is high, it prevents you from overreaching and burning out. Stability over time beats intensity in short bursts. The best systems are intentionally small. People overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. Large systems fail because they're fragile. They break under stress. Small systems survive chaos. 5 minutes of daily reflection, 10 minutes of focused learning, a short walk, a single meaningful task completed. These are sustainable. Excellence doesn't require you to redesign your life overnight. It requires you to anchor a few non-negotiable actions into your day. Systems also create identity. When you repeat an action long enough, it becomes part of who you are. You don't try to be consistent. You become someone who shows up. This identity shift is what makes excellence durable. It moves from something you pursue to something you embody. At that point, progress becomes automatic. In the end, daily excellence is not about ambition. It's about reliability. When you build simple, repeatable systems, you let time do the heavy lifting, and time, when paired with consistency, is the most powerful force you have. Everything of value in your life comes from the quality of your mind. Your decisions, your creativity, your relationships, and your work all flow from the state of your inner world. Yet most people treat their mind as an open marketplace, allowing anything to enter, news, opinions, noise, and distractions, without questioning the cost. Daily excellence begins when you realize that protecting your mind is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Your attention is finite. Every input you consume takes something away from your ability to think clearly. Constant stimulation fragments focus and weakens judgment. When your mind is scattered, even simple decisions feel heavy. This is why mental clarity is a form of leverage. A calm, focused mind can outperform a stressed, distracted one even with fewer resources. Excellence is less about doing more and more about thinking better. Most mental clutter comes from unnecessary inputs. Endless news cycles, social media feeds, and reactive conversations keep the mind in a state of low-level anxiety. They train you to respond rather than reflect. When you reduce these inputs, you create space, and in that space, insight emerges. Great ideas don't come from noise, they come from silence. Protecting your mind often means subtracting, not adding. Another threat to mental clarity is emotional reactivity. When you allow external events to control your internal state, you lose agency. Excellence requires emotional resilience, the ability to observe thoughts and feelings without being owned by them. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means understanding that not every thought deserves attention and not every feeling requires action. A mind that can pause before reacting makes better long-term decisions. Rest is also a form of protection. A tired mind exaggerates problems and underestimates solutions. Sleep, stillness, and unstructured time are not indulgences. They are maintenance. Many people attempt to think their way out of exhaustion, but clarity doesn't come from effort alone. It comes from recovery. When the mind is rested, Priorities become obvious and complexity collapses into simplicity. Protecting your mind also means choosing your environment carefully. The people you spend time with, the conversations you entertain, and the expectations you accept all shape your inner world. If you are constantly surrounded by urgency, comparison, or negativity, your mind adapts to that state. Excellence flourishes in environments that encourage calm, honesty, and long-term thinking. Sometimes the most powerful move is distance from people, platforms, or patterns that drain your mental energy. Inner peace is not the absence of ambition, it is the absence of unnecessary conflict. A peaceful mind is not passive, it is precise. It sees things as they are, not as they feel in the moment. This clarity allows you to focus on what matters and ignore what doesn't. Over time, this selective attention compounds into wisdom. Ultimately, protecting your mind is about respecting your own consciousness. It is recognizing that your inner state determines the quality of your outer life. When you guard your attention, regulate your emotions, and create space for clear thinking, excellence becomes natural. You don't force better decisions, you make them by default. A protected mind doesn't chase every signal. It listens for what is timeless, quiet, and true. And from that place, an exceptional life is built.